Okay.
Calling this meeting to order. Today is February 4th. We have a quorum. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 6 of 8, and we have Rebecca attending remotely. First question, are there any adjustments to the agenda? I didn't put you in, but
I don't think I have anything new to say.
okay, great.
Just looking at the
I mean,
agenda.
great. In any case, I would be happy for you to have new things to say as well. I don't see any citizens.
Just one quick thing, did Max's additions get into the agenda?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Hey.
The agenda, if anybody doesn't have it, is in the Dropbox for this month. We don't have any citizens. We do have a set of minutes to approve. I looked them over. It looks good. There was one tiny little error, Rebecca, where you said the next meeting was on February 3rd, but it's February 4th. I would make a motion to enter those minutes into the record.
Second,
All four?
Worth in here, so
Okay.
I abstain.
All right. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 1 or 2 abstentions. So the minutes are entered. I don't have much to add to in terms of the chair report. There are a couple other things I want to talk about when we get down to new business. So I'll just go over to Max for the town updates.
Yeah, sure. So first, entering budget season, so Julie and everyone in the back is having such a wonderful time. So apologies if there's any delay when you want to get some questions from them or answers from them. Planning board is going to be meeting next Thursday. Really only 2 items. One is an after the fact subdivision amendment up on Beach Ridge. It's right off of Flanders Corner, for those who don't know it. And just some land use ordinance revisions, just some items that weren't done last year because of some delays, but it's really some minor stuff.
Max, where can I find a copy of the land use ordinance?
That can be found online. One of the tabs at the very top, I believe the far left, should give you a scroll down option to ordinances.
Okay.
And ordinances and policies, and then you should be able to find it there. Next, don't know if I talked about Northern, I'm trying to remember who I've talked to Northern Borders about, but there is a federal program where we can get up to $1 million in a 1-1 match for economic projects in Maine. That's called Northern Borders Regional Commission. It's something where Lincoln County originally was not part of it, but we were just included in the expansion this year, so that's great. I've talked with the select board about putting in an application so we can put a booster station in the downtown to improve the water pressure in the downtown, so we can have some expansions later on in the future, but also so that people with very low water pressure can have, decent water pressure, even in case of an emergency. Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund, we have 2 pre-applications and we'll be going forward with them. One of them is for the Elm Street culvert replacement to try and lower the amount that we have to provide at a local match level. And then the other is to do another trail at Quarry Hill for that mountain bike universal trail. It's always nice to have those. And we are still finishing up our Mattamic River capacity study for aquaculture and oysters in the river. And it's actually been getting quite a lot of attention that there's other towns that are trying to replicate the same study. So,
Really?
Yep. So we've been leading the charge on this one.
awesome.
What's the timeline on that, and what form will the report be in, or how does that work?
We are expecting it to, and I'm going to keep going back and forth until I see Jen's attending the meeting. We should be expecting it to finish, I think, in April, and then actually present. I believe originally it's supposed to be reported to the select board or at least Shellfish Committee with some other stakeholders in the area. But the plan was to have a presentation at a select board meeting.
And then just so I understand the next steps, at the presentation of that report, depending on the outcome,
Mhm.
is the moratorium automatically lifted? Or does that have to be then separately voted on as a result of this study?
I mean, the moratorium was kind of a separate thing. I mean, I know that's what led to it, but really, I've been trying to get the study going just so there is some better direction of where oyster influence actually has for claiming.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't control the moratorium.
yeah. Well, I know, I'm just wondering, how does this relate to aquaculture policy in Waldoboro? Like, we get this report and then we separately make decisions about how to permit aquaculture.
The study to me has been about trying to prove the claims that oysters have this negative impact on the natural species that are in the Potomac River. And that's kind of what this is trying to get that conversation started on of, yeah, if you put 1 million oysters right there, then yeah, it's gonna see an influence. Or, yeah, if you put 1 million oysters there, nothing happens. And then, you know, for either scenario, it's a win-win. If you do see there's a huge impact, then no oysters in the Potomac because it's impacting these clam flats. If you see that it is an impact on it, or it isn't an impact on it, then hey, whoever wants to put in an oyster farm now has some data to show that it's not gonna impact them.
But wasn't it that it's up at the state level that they permit these things?
They do. And we're giving some scientific evidence because you'll have some people claim, oh yeah, it's so safe, it's harmless, and we're giving that evidence of, well, this is us in the river testing the waters, and this is what the science and data is showing. If the state wants to ignore it, that will cause a lot of interesting thoughts, but
Yeah.
I like good science and good data.
Yeah.
that's all it is. Next, HVAC. Conrad noticed it, and I hope a lot of you noticed it coming in. There's no massive heater right there, and you're not wearing, most of you aren't wearing some heavy coats right now. HVAC, VRF, it's all working. You can put your hand up against the heater if you're tall enough, and you'll get that hot air coming out. I think we're 71 supposedly in here. So yeah, it's nice, and we're just wrapping it up. I think there's 1 or 2 more pieces that have to be installed in the hallway, but that's it. And speaking of that, I do have my community action list to go over, which was gonna be later, wasn't it, or? I don't see it on
Yes,
the-
yeah, we can go over that later.
Okay. I still haven't heard back about my most recent request, so hopefully I'll know by next month. And then I've been working on my TIF estimates to just get an idea for what we're looking at next year and how it balances out with some projects. The short summary is, I probably won't recommend using the TIF for a lot of projects for next year, just because we are still wrapping up the broadband project, as well as the Elm Street culvert and just a few other projects, so. But we are expecting to get a very nice increase because of it, because of the revaluation, which again is always a bittersweet thing, because yay, money in the TIF, but boo, it's increasing value for people's property taxes. So it's always a bittersweet thing. I always have to remind myself of that every year. But speaking of the broadband, they're laying out the fiber. It's starting.
Yeah,
Right
by my house,
by your house. A lot of people noticed it.
right down the
I
road.
think a week after they came to the select board and said, oh yeah, no, it'll be another month. And then 1 week later, trucks and everything are out.
Yeah, they are all over the place.
People
Under
can-
promise, over deliver.
Yep, people can go online and put in their address, and if there's an issue with it, there is a Google form where people just let me or Ruben know, and we'll make sure Fidium is aware of it.
What are the services that Fidium is planning to offer through their fiber? Do we know?
Internet and phone. Or
Internet
are you
and
talking about the
phone,
specifics?
and they'll tell you where you can go get streaming services, but the idea is you would get your own streaming stuff. That could be Spectrum, that could be Fubo, that could be 100 other things. So they will get you the data, they will get you phone if you want it, and you put whatever you want over that connection up to 2 gigabit both ways.
Up to
So that would replace like a Hulu master, maybe $90 Hulu plan if you're.
Well, Hulu is the plan. You would put that over your data. So, although I've never heard of a
Well, like,
$90
yeah,
Hulu
so
plan.
I pay 80 for Hulu and then also for the internet and the broadband.
So,
Oh, it's a package.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you would get Hulu on its own and you would put it over that if you get that
Right.
connection.
Well, I have Hulu on it.
Yep. So whatever your smart devices, computer, smoke signals,
just switch it
however you
over.
watch it, you just put it over that connection. Yep.
I'm probably up on my one.
And if you don't want it, you get to not take it.
Yeah.
It's pretty smooth.
So when they hook it up, that house that they just hooked up is online, and then the next one, and then the next one, or do they have to turn the whole line on at the same time?
They're turning sections on at a time when they bring it online. We don't have a map, or if we do, we like, I wouldn't be allowed to tell you where a network cabinet is or something like that. It would be like telling you about where like secret power station stuff is.
Mm.
When they build any network, cable, fiber, whatever, they run all their backhaul stuff. You'll see the trucks running down Route 1, and then they'll turn on sections of roads depending on where that converges and connects. It's going to be like this build. It's going to go faster than you'd expect.
Can we assume that because they started on, they seem to have started on a friendship? That would be the first road they turn on.
I don't know if that's the first road.
No.
I think,
There's a lot of other considerations. If you were running a gambling outfit, this would be the time to spin it up and have people place bets.
I've replied every time they send me something in the mail, so I've gone in there 4 or 5 times.
You're gonna have 18, 19 modems at your house when they're done.
I don't know.
Has anybody seen how it gets strung up there? The cable's like that. And there's a kind of a metal thing that like that it just sits in on the bottom wire, and then you just run it down, and it takes no time at all to.
No,
string
it's
it
just a
out.
piece of glass.
Takes no time to, yeah.
You should get on YouTube and look up fusing fiber. The way they terminate that is something else.
Really?
Cool.
Or you're gonna go to sleep. I'm a nerd, but I think it's cool.
and I think that's all I've got.
Okay.
Great. Let's move to old business. There are some new items that are probably going to take up the bulk of our time discussing, I anticipate. So, Anne, let me turn it over to you just to discuss the biannual committee review that we kind of started to talk about last year. In July, I made a presentation at the select board, and yeah, just how do you feel about what we've been doing or what we should be doing?
Well, what I did was to print out, one copy, the committee projects. And it starts with broadband internet expansion. I think that's done.
Yep.
The website, thanks to Julie, it's done. The accessory dwelling unit incentives and workforce housing is to be discussed tonight. And then near-term actions from the Waldeboro Visioning Report, Downtown Revitalization Master Plan, and the Bike Pedestrian Plan, where we said we'll pull a few ideas from these documents to bring to the upcoming downtown forum. And that was what had started what I have also and can share. In most cases, I only have 5 copies, but maybe people can hear over. But everybody sort of have, yeah.
Cool.
Just things that had been brought up in the forum and in other things that were discussed, came up in the meeting since June. Speed tables, which, I mean, what we can do since we have limited time is I can get in touch with you, Max, on some of these,
Yeah.
and where do the speed tables stand? Out of the forum came a bunch of things that what I would really like to be able to do is to have a meeting in the spring with Julie, the DPW, and maybe you, Mac, and anybody else who wanted to come and walk through the Worcester parking lot and say, what of these things can we do? Like, can we just stripe the blasted thing so at least you know where you can park when you show up? We don't have to implement the UMA, the students or UMO, whatever University of Maine students group did for the moment. Put some signage in, maybe find out what we're going to do with this poor dear cherry tree that's much the worse for wear. I know it's in memory of some person, and maybe instead we could do like annual Woman Who Loved Cherries Day when we all have cherry pies or something like that. I don't mean to be snide, but it just seems like if it were I who was being memorialized with this cherry tree, I would like to have my cherry tree be a little bit more, shall we say, of a
Healthier.
positive.
Is part of that tree still
Addition.
alive?
I think when we looked at it, it was pretty much gone.
Okay.
Like, it's not coming back.
Well, no, I don't, well, you can't save the tree, but like, can you clip a branch or put rooting hormone on it or something?
Yes, I'm sure you could do something like that.
Yeah.
You could probably graft a twig from onto another.
I'm gonna send an email that doesn't burn up meeting time.
Oh,
I
yeah,
want a piece
no,
of
no,
tree.
but-
We'll just figure that one out.
Or commission somebody to
So there's,
redo a sculpture out of the tree.
yeah. And there are some random other things. I mean, there was discussion about the Sylvania site and asbestos abatement. Possibility of doing a business incubator, an open air market. Housing, the tax deduction for workforce housing, ADU stuff, that's all coming up later.
And we will have updates on the Hofstas House at that area of the park, future park to discuss relating to food pantry and some other things. So
Okay. And there's, I had brought this up, I think it
Oh,
may be on the idea of a database of vacant buildings, and you had
Yes.
brought it up earlier in last
Went over like a
fall.
lead balloon.
Well, I mean, actually,
No, it didn't.
great minds think alike, but sometimes
Hmm.
think slowly. And that John and I were driving by the house on Fintown, where there've been all the drug busts and stuff, and we sort of looked at each other and said, man, what a crime that house is vacant.
Hmm.
And gee, is there a way we could start looking at exactly doing what you're doing, what you suggested?
Yeah.
Start looking at what we have for vacant houses, and we're not gonna boil the we're not going to boil the ocean. We're going to have to start small. This problem didn't happen overnight. A solution isn't gonna happen overnight.
The other problem is that some of these places burn down and there's no insurance.
Mhm.
And we put at risk life and treasure every time one of these fires occurs. That's something that needs to go into the mix.
Oh, absolutely. So, but to start this discussion, talk to the people. John is interested in doing some of it. I'm interested in doing some of it.
I'd be
Yeah.
happy to help out.
That would be-
When you brought it up, Bob, I thought it was a great idea. I just wasn't able to pick it up and lead with it.
Would that be a subcommittee activity of some kind, do you think? It seems like it's involved.
Yeah,
Whatever you think.
that sounds great.
Just back.
Um,
Well, I'd like you in that group with these people. Like, these are great thoughts. I like the idea.
Oh, I do too.
and then,
wait, just to put a pin in that particular subcommittee idea, dealing or thinking about making a database of vacant buildings, is that something that either one of you would want to kind of head up?
sure,
I mean, I don't, you should.
well,
I
because,
can't, I don't know. Bear or.
oh, aren't we all? But John,
Yeah.
John was also intrigued by it, and so you're kind of getting two for the price of one here.
Yeah.
Or, maybe one for the price of a half or something, but we'll start mucking about with it. Then there was a lot of discussion earlier this past year, on the Madomic Head of Tide Beautification Project that you had brought up, Alec, and that I really didn't want to let go by, because some of them are more elaborate, but some of them are less elaborate. And Sonia, you had mentioned the museum in the streets. And that would be working with Bill Maxwell to make that happen. I'm not planning to commit anybody to anything. I was just going to say, these are the things we've brought to the surface. Here's how we're going to work on some of them, and the others are not going to be forgotten. And then I found this piece that Max, you had discussed, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston Permanent Rate Buy Down Program, say that 3 times fast. That seemed like something that would really be useful to have somewhere on the Waldoboro website, something available out there so that people who were looking for that kind of support could find it. And then Sonia, you had mentioned that books on historical Waldoboro, the library doesn't have them. And I'm thinking that would be the sort of a thing, since I work at I volunteer at the used bookstore, I'll put a little note there. And then also to give, just somehow to put it out that as people are cleaning out their parents' homes, which happens, I'm facing that myself.
Mm.
If they have books on Waldeboro, books on Lincoln County, bring them down. And we could put a little bookshelf in there or something where we could at least start to create some sense of our history.
There's
Or
also
put
a
the historical stuff.
treasure trove of literature at the Historical Society.
Yes.
Maybe that's where they're living then.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where they are. And they don't, there's, you have to buy it, you can't borrow.
right.
So maybe having a set at the library.
And there are a number of books at the library. But you know better than I, maybe what's available at the library. I mean, I've looked
I
through the
haven't-
old cemetery books that the library, some of the old family records are, there's a whole section of the library that has.
Okay, historical
Waldeboro
Waldeboro stuff.
I looked at some of the old
It-
newspapers
it
from
seemed
like the
unusual.
forties.
Yeah.
50s that are in the library. It's kind of cool.
So, yeah, we'll just keep, I'll keep an eye out as things come through. They probably, because most people, when they're doing a big clean out, take the books first to the public library and they'll bring out the ones that they think would be useful and then they send the rest of them down to us. So if anything slides through there, seeing, I will pounce on it, but,
Cool.
so that's that, and I will write this up along the lines of this excellent model that you gave me.
Thank you.
So we have something at the next select board meeting. So they know we're just not running amok.
So that's kind of summarizing what we talked about, what we've done the last 6 months. Before we go to discussion of food pantry statistics and then the new business, is there anything that anybody wants to add to that stuff when looking at these items, things that you feel should be a priority of this community going forward? Like looking forward to spring. The first thing that comes to mind is what you just mentioned about making a plan, not just for the Worcester parking lot, but for just downtown beautification
Mhm.
efforts in general. Alec, you had some specific ideas when we get into the summer about that would need to be discussed and approved, like limbing up trees to give us a better view of the river, for instance. That would be
Yeah,
something that would have to be,
The low-lying branches.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, but that would be a major change and that'd have to be discussed, but
I thought it would be just, yeah,
uh,
at a minimum, just grooming.
right. So, I mean,
I think so.
And Main Street too.
right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sonia.
I was wondering, there's nothing, it's all concentrating on downtown. We might start thinking of doing stuff in the outer edges of Waldeboro. Create little centers, try to think of something, because I was reading, well, for later on, but thinking, where are these farms where they're raising the alpacas and things
Mhm.
like that?
Great idea.
Where are they located? These kind of things. So
Yeah,
that was the only thing. It's like, I don't know, a lot of the stuff seems to be focused on downtown, but Waldeboro's an entire town.
yeah, it's in a
Are
way,
you
it's-
thinking signage or something like that, or?
Well, no, there's might be what we may not have opportunity for in downtown. We may be able to create opportunities
mm.
in other parts of the town.
Annex opportunities.
I don't know about an annex opportunity, but like, like a village corner, like where
Yeah.
Morse's Sauerkraut is. There's some of those corners. There could be a couple of businesses that people, instead of having to drive 50 miles to here, can go there. And if you want, to bring, you have to kind of study it, like if it's farms, if you want to bring people to the farms, see about setting up like a farm stand where the farmers can get to it easy.
It's the gas station
Yeah.
model.
I mean,
guess.
You have 4 gas stations at an intersection.
there's a number of things I want to say about that. And if there's time, I want to get to it, but Bob, you had
Well, Rebecca Cooney's done some work already.
that's right. Yeah.
and You're aware of it. So I thought she was gonna be here tonight, but she's got a pretty full agenda, so I understand why. But it's being worked on. I mean, there's some ideas out there.
And I think specifically what you're talking about is maybe a kind of coherent map that,
I was thinking of the directory.
a
Yeah,
directory
it draws things in and educates people along the way.
and
a
something
great
that's a
idea.
little bit more comprehensive than just a Chamber of Commerce type thing,
a
visit
great
these
idea.
businesses, but just a more
Yeah.
cultural atlas for people who are living here already, people who are visiting, to be aware of how to connect the dots, what's going on in this area.
Sauerkraut.
Yeah, and who's doing what
They're
and
out
where
there.
and, yeah,
Or you could even have
Exactly.
different layers, so farms.
Yeah,
And, you know,
yeah, right.
they're all, and hiking trails and, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Rebecca's done a lot of work on this already, so she needs to be.
she's a dear friend. We'll have to meet at Perch.
Yes, yeah.
Life is hard.
It's,
Sorry.
Okay, let's talk briefly about the food pantry.
Food pantry, sure. So another busy day today. We had, I'll give you the stats first, 168 households, 454 people were provided food. The children, 149, adults, 231, and seniors, 74. That's kind of the age breakdown. I think you guys know all the seniors get a prepared meal, which is kind of a cool deal. Today was just a crazy day at the pantry. We had a Good Shepherd's truck got stuck in the driveway going up. And we had to get the town in to sand the hill, and so it was quite a day today, but we got through it and everybody got their deliveries and their food, so we had a good day.
Good to hear it.
Lots of fun.
Let's go over to new business. Now, I have here downtown master plan, but there's also the community, the resilience document that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll start with downtown master plan because I think that's more of an update. So. And who knows, Bob's probably Bob or someone who was on the select board back.
I wasn't,
You weren't,
no.
but you
I'm-
might tell me.
I'm aware of it. I attended some of the meetings.
Okay.
So,
Close enough.
so when the downtown master plan was done back in 2011, the only thing I could find was that the select board accepted it in November. But a downtown master plan is meant to be accepted by the legislative body, which for Waldeboro is the town meeting.
Yeah.
So if it never went to a town meeting, it technically was never approved.
Okay.
Which means I can't apply for any grants that are focused on downtown improvements
Based on that,
based on.
Yeah.
And we were running through town managers back then, like water through a sieve, so it
yeah.
got
So-
lost somewhere. and then-
So I think this gives a bit of an opportunity for us though, where we can make some slight adjustments to the downtown master plan from 2011, get it back into people's minds. There's a lot of old stuff that I would like to get rid of because some things don't exist in that anymore and some things were probably not ideal to put in there. But there's also new programs that are available. There's new resources. And probably some updates from last year's forum for the downtown, some of the Viking items, I don't think were really mentioned too much. So I think this is a good opportunity to make those quick little adjustments and then have something on the warrant in June.
We hired a consultant back in the day to do that plan,
Yep,
and I'm sure they're still around.
probably.
Do we need to spend money on them to update it, or can we do it ourselves?
We can do it.
Okay, good.
and, you know, if we need to thump on, you know, I have a master's in urban
Oh,
urban
we don't need
planning,
it.
so we can always wave
We get
that
some
around.
grants
I
here.
have
So-
never planned an urban area
And
in
so
anger,
I
I
do
must
see that,
say,
yeah,
but.
Jan. So the reason I want to just quickly get to Bob's thing on why not, but it's a quick thing. The reason we don't need to get the consultant is because the consultant was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Right,
We're gonna use the
We got
plan already, so it's just minor tweaks. So
Yeah.
that's why we don't need a consultant.
how big is the plan?
What do you mean?
How many pages is the plan?
128.
Yeah, Conrad obviously knows that off the top.
So
What year is it?
I'm looking at it.
Okay,
So when I think of something that's 128 pages long.
Yep.
Like nobody's gonna read that, probably, except maybe some of us here, but
That's what AI is for.
does it have a nice summary, or is there?
I think there was a summary in the
Yeah,
front.
Yeah.
So we can identify kind of the 5 things,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, good, sorry, that's all. I just didn't
no, I
want.
understand.
Is that in the Dropbox or is that on the page, or how are you doing
I
that?
pulled it up in the,
It's
we
shared
had
on the
it,
town website.
it's also in the Dropbox
Yeah.
from our meeting of last year in April. The 2024 April folder contains this master plan.
All right, cool.
What we could do is pull that out and just put it in a master plan folder that's just.
We can start another one, yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
available.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, so, how many steps are involved? How do we go about doing this?
Just need to get it approved.
Okay, but I mean, talking
Update.
about taking things out of it,
So what
updating things.
so my plan was going to be getting some, everyone can certainly look at it if they like and make some suggestions. I was just going to go through the plan and take out what is old stuff or unnecessary stuff. Make some little tweaks of what we've done since 2011 as well. And then we can talk about it at meetings. And hopefully by April, we can put this forward to go on the town warrant in June.
Okay. I guess the only thing I wanted to add to that, kind of related to your inquiry a moment ago, is what Max is talking about is making sure that we get it approved by the town so that we can attract funding.
Yeah.
That's a very technical thing.
Yeah.
A more public facing thing that you're indicating is, can we, once we made those tweaks, once we put it forward to the public, can we then create another document that's just very
Everybody could read.
current
The
Yeah.
summary.
and friendly and is easy to understand,
Yeah,
that relates to this, but maybe is a little bit separate from it. There, because I've looked at this because I'm obsessed with all of this stuff. But very few people that I've talked to in Waldeboro knew that this even existed.
Right.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things I probably will do, I mean, it says the amendment process in here, having a 1 or 2 year amendment process, just so it can still be tweaked every now and then, still stay fresh in people's minds so that it doesn't get forgotten over 14 years. But the other thing I want to do is probably expand it, because at the downtown forum, it seemed like some folks didn't want the downtown to just be that little stretch. They wanted it to be a lot of that area. That's pretty much the village. So I'm going to see what's allowed for that, but those are the two big things that will probably be different compared to what the 2011 plan was.
Max, would our signage
We can put some,
project be part of that now?
See,
I
there
think
there
both
was
in
there was signage as part of it too. They even had somebody draw up signs. The Regina Leonard drew up sketches of signs, navigational wayfinding signs.
yeah.
And as you were pointing out, none of this stuff was, but these were just ideas.
Yeah.
That were all included.
They were done, then it was a book on the shelf.
Which we don't want to do, right?
Yeah, but then it's weird because we have done some of these projects actually.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. See, here was the downtown gateway sign from then.
I like ours better.
So anyways, that's my whole thing with downtown master
All right.
plan. Just I'm gonna aim for April. People want to take a look at it and give some suggestions or not even read it, but just say, hey, make sure that this project's in here. We'll get to work on that.
Cool.
What files are it again? I'm sorry.
It's in the April folder from 2024.
Okay.
Okay. And then,
Community resilience. Yeah.
Yep, so I mentioned it last month, but community resiliency, we are up for renewing our resolution. And this is what's allowed us to get a $50,000 grant to do the HVAC upgrade. And hopefully we can get 75,000 for LED lighting and insulation, which is funny that you guys were complaining about the lighting before the meeting started. So one of them is just going through the list of community actions. And I did put it in the Dropbox in case people want to look at it. But so far of the 80 or 90 different projects, Waldeboro's already done, I think,
21, you said.
We've
21.
done 21 of them, and 6 of them have been in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So very good.
Yeah, cracking real money.
Some of these are probably projects we won't do in the immediate future, like buying an electric vehicle or trying to do more EV charging stuff. Mainly because of what's happening at the federal level.
Yeah.
But, and because even the electric vehicle, I think the grant usually is capped at like 7,500 or 2,000, like they've set a low amount, like we can't get 75,000. We have to do a smaller amount. So meanwhile, there's a few other things like other energy upgrades and trying to find one thing that I could use as an example. Vulnerability assessments, updating mitigation plans, flood risk assessment, which probably isn't going to be a good chunk of town. But there's some of these items that are more awareness focused or just further planning items, because or doing energy audits for not for other municipal buildings that the town office.
Hmm.
Um. But other than that, that's pretty much where we're at for it, so. Just feel free to look at the resolution that's in the Dropbox. Let me get your thoughts. We'll do a I'll have to do a workshop and I'll have to do a self-assessment with some of the other town staff members. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward and just trying to get some other project ideas in mind.
Would it help to go through the document you sent to us and eliminate the stuff that we're not gonna even look at? So we're narrowing down,
I would,
Field.
don't eliminate it. But there is the additional resources tab where I put my notes,
Right.
or I think actually I have my notes maybe
you've
on.
got
not that-
links there, a lot of links.
There are links there,
Yeah.
but maybe that's not the column I've been writing in. Maybe it's the one to the right of it. I make
Okay.
I make notes on the right of it saying why certain things aren't gonna be done the way. You can all just add into other ones or other columns saying, you know, Jan saying this isn't a priority, or Jan saying this is a priority, or something like that.
But to your point, the first column ranks these items
Yeah.
by completed, high priority, low priority, or not likely to happen.
Yeah, I just put down an N for the ones I don't think are happening. Although I don't know why the A11 turned into a skull and crossbones. I'm not even kidding.
I see
I'm
it.
I'm showing you right there. Like I keep swapping it out no matter how many times.
Is it an ASCII code?
Well, you said it wasn't gonna happen, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
you must have felt some kind of way about that.
I guess I've doomed us all.
I guess my point is they're setting the priorities. I don't like that.
No,
We ought-
we're setting.
We ought to be setting the priorities.
No, that's it. We are setting.
Okay. All right.
We don't have to do all the projects that are on here, but this is us just giving an indication, you know, where we are at in
Yep.
town, because flooding probably isn't gonna be a top concern
Mhm.
compared to a lot of the coastal towns. And I say that looking at the floodplain maps, there's not that many buildings that are in the
you're
floodplain
right.
compared to coastal ones.
Right.
So anyways, appreciate it. People can take a look at that, and then workshop will probably be scheduled in March or April.
Okay. All right, so the next item, this may invite a lot of discussion or a little discussion. I don't really know. There are a lot of municipalities in recent years that have started to create pre-approved ADU or dwelling unit programs so that you can just log on to a town website and choose from a list of contractors and architect approved plans if you want to add a structure to your property. So you can, it's a way of quickly getting a project going, knowing that you're not going to have any hurdles, regulatory hurdles. And it's a way for a town to help control the look and feel of a place, because then they can establish you have these 6 different townhouse designs that sort of fit with the existing architecture. So in a way, if there's a lot of demand for it, or if there's pent up demand for it, it can be a way to streamline this for everybody and help move these things forward, help get more housing built, more flexibility in the market, and so on, for the reasons that we've talked about in the past. Waldeboro could potentially do this. I don't know how many steps would be involved in setting it up, because or how far you would go in terms of would you log in and you would say these are 12 different house plans that you could download or you would buy through, and then immediately get approved from the town, and then you could build it. Then you have to solicit different contractors, and you have a list of set contractors. So that would have to go through the town. What do you think about this idea?
I'll do the kickoff.
Yeah.
So it's something I've been in favor of. It's something that Mark the code enforcement officer seemed in favor of. For a simple reason of, quicker, and as long as people are following it, it's easier on the admin time, and it's something that's known to be effective. With that said, we think of what's happened with tiny homes recently, where some people will get the pre-done tiny homes, which should be good, but then people make their own adjustments without telling anyone, or they try to squeak and find whatever loopholes they can, and suddenly what should have been a very straightforward process starts getting complicated. And it's kind of negating the whole point, because we're losing time arguing about some things. So it's good if it's successful, and we do have a great way of implementing it. But that's just gonna be the big concern, making sure fire safety codes, plumbing, things that we're always looking for in these inspections are actually met, and people aren't trying to cut corners, because that's what usually happens. But it could be good.
I would want to caution against providing a list of pre-approved contractors. And I speak from personal experience. Our contractor did really quite a remarkably good job. He was not perfect, but it was during COVID. Somebody at the lot next to us had their house built, stick built, a guy who was one of the people we considered to build our house. And I don't know, I mean, part of it was that these people are architects. They're both architects. So you never knew whether the way the house proceeded in fits and starts. Our house took 9 months. This house has taken 2.5 years.
Is that the low one?
It's the
But
one
don't
with
have
the
to-
tall.
Just on the right?
Yeah. And I don't know, you don't know why, but certainly if somebody here that it was this guy who was, oh yeah, he's really good. He wasn't into doing our job. Thank God. But I wouldn't want the town to be on the hook for having recommended somebody
Mm.
when, for whatever reason, and it may be that the people had massive fights over what color they were going to paint the bathroom. And so the guy wasn't going to go and paint the bathroom until he knew what color it was supposed to be. But we don't know that.
That's messy.
And everybody ends
I
up
can
blaming
remember.
somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, but the town doesn't necessarily have liability for something that a contractor, mistakes that a contractor makes, right? I mean,
Well,
I just
that
wouldn't
goes
want
back-
the town to be in the business of having recommended or
Right.
having a list that
Yeah.
imply.
but
and
they
it
do
doesn't-
already for plumbing, for instance.
Do they?
Or, septic, like when you go in to get a septic permit, it's like, here's a list of.
Well, that's why we do the inspections.
Are they certified?
septic's
Like
easy,
survey.
Hold on. There's
Wait.
a few different people chatting, and Sonia had her hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you go online to look at Hammond Lumber, they have house plans and they sell you the entire building. You just have to get it built and you find a plumber and all that. So
Right.
you could look at that for designs, but I've been doing the research on the ADUs and you're looking into California and there's quite a few contractors that have pulled out.
Hmm.
And the people have lost $50,000 because they contracted with the contractor and he's building 5 houses. His bond is only $10,000. It's a requirement of the state where they have to have a bond to protect the interest against the loss, and they don't have enough money to cover for the 5 people on the 50,000, and they can't get their money. They've already paid the contractor, and he pulled out, declared bankruptcy, and they said it's a growing problem in California.
It's too small a bond.
Yeah.
Too
So
small
that,
bond.
so like my thing is, if you're gonna do something like that, look at where they're doing these things and see what kind of problems are cropping up.
It's gotta hurt.
Cause you gotta look at what could happen, the down the roads and stuff, and some of it's not good news. And stuff, and I don't know, and I just kind of like, I'm traditional New England. It's the town hall and the people in the town make a decision about doing something. So when you're talking about planning and doing prefabs, right, you're making it any town USA, and it's no longer the town of Waldeboro. Cause now you've got all these townhomes that look alike.
Well,
And
actually,
you've
that's the
got-
opposite of what we're talking about. What we're talking about is this actually creates an opportunity for a
Right.
town, not a state, a town to say, these are the kinds of houses that we would like to encourage for our town, not houses that came out of Minneapolis or out of California, but out of the historical context of this town. So it's actually the opposite of what you're saying. It's
But-
trying to create something that's more local.
I'm sorry, I saw
Yeah.
that.
I'm just not sure why we're having this conversation. You have a building code in Maine.
We do.
The town requires buildings in this town to be built to code.
Yeah.
To me, that's the bottom line. You can design a round house, a purple house, a green house, or a triangular house. If they don't meet the code, they're not gonna they're not gonna be successfully inspected. I don't understand why we have a concern about this. What am I
this is-
missing?
Conrad's better at explaining it.
Well, I mean, I've had a couple conversations with folks who looked into building an ADU. And then when they had a couple conversations with Mark about the number of steps involved, they just decided, you know what, I don't have a design yet. I'm just gonna plunk down a trailer for friends to stay in for the summer. The idea of a pre-approved program is to make it easier for people and faster for people and sometimes cheaper for people, because they know they're buying a house plan that already is going to be to code and is going to sail through and it's not going to face any problems getting built.
I think the only way I could assess that is if you write up a value proposition on it, so we can understand it better. Talking about it, just kind of like, if you really think it's a good idea and we think we should, I mean, Bob's not sure, maybe we don't understand it. But if you can write that up and make it crisp,
Yeah.
then I can see it.
It might be better to pull like an example
Okay,
in
yeah.
Maine that may have it.
Yeah.
As I say, I've been interested in trying to see if something similar. I know what you're talking about over in California. I was more interested in somewhat, if there is that one design, like building example 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, whoever the contractor is comes into Mark and says, we're doing this building 1 example. And Mark says, okay, as long as you're following that to the letter,
Yeah.
we're good, keep moving. And it cuts down his time because he doesn't have to look at every single aspect of it. He just has to show up when it's pretty much done. Rather than someone who's trying to start from scratch. And so Mark has to then go through everything.
So where does design one come from?
Well, it could be like what Sonia was referring to a minute ago, where Hammond Lumber would say they have a bunch of house plans that you can buy. Doing it this way would save people money because the architects and the contractors have an incentive to offer these plans because then it's business.
Yeah.
But essentially you would be getting it at a discount or free or something. I mean, that would have to be structured. I don't know what that would
Right,
look like
then,
exactly.
as I said, I think it's easier to find the actual example in Maine.
So you're more likely to see an ADU be completed.
Yeah.
And you have an opportunity to preserve a look and feel if Waldeboro had a set look and feel to a building. Understanding we're not cookie cutters. We've got all kinds of interesting stuff in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's theoretically the advantage of it. Partially, I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to hear from other people. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of people wanting to build something, but then it's like, I don't know about hiring an architect. I don't know about,
Well, they damn well better hire an architect. They're building something like that.
Well, we've actually, when we used Brightbuilt for our house plan, and it was modular. And they actually have gotten into a line of basically class, they want these to be we want to be your ADU kind of thing.
So they're engineered?
Yeah, they're built by, or the ones around here are built by KBS up in Oxford.
They're engineered.
Yeah.
They got the stamp.
it's called Bright what?
Brightbuilt.
Built.
Are they engineers? Yes, the guy in the factory signs off on the plan.
I'm not sure I know what that really means,
Well,
but
because it's a modular home, so it's built in a factory
I get that.
and the Brightbuilt people are more likely to be architects. And so once they've figured out, they've done their architectural jiggery pokery. And then they provide it to the engineer up at
Factory.
KBS.
Mhm.
And when he approves it, because he's the one who has to make sure that everything kind of actually meets and there's no sort of magical thing, then he signs off on the plan. So I don't know whether I'm answering your question.
Process.
It's built to order like. it looks
Yeah.
layers.
I mean, exactly. I mean, there is stick-built work that's done on site. But the house shows up and it's weathered in. It is not by any means move in. But it is livable. No, it is not livable, but it's ready to be constructed inside as opposed to having to do the framing work from the outside.
I mean, just to go back, the purpose of bringing this up is I'm asking the group and I'm asking anyone who's watching these meetings, what are the hurdles to creating more units of housing in Waldeboro? This is the question I'm asking. On the financing side, what are the hurdles?
Mhm.
On the regulatory side, what are the hurdles? On the, timeline, the hiring tradespeople, what are the hurdles? Like,
Yeah.
how can we
You know,
facilitate, incentivize more units of housing in Waldeboro?
you know, who could speak to that, maybe help us understand the problem are the community coordinators down in Damascus.
The community coordinators?
Community coordinator. The community navigators?
Yeah, community navigators.
Oh, and Waldeboro shares one of.
Yeah, Karen Ann is.
Yeah.
Every time. What would that, and I'm curious what she would know.
Well, are you talking about ADUs for lower income or for anybody?
Oh, well, I mean, that not specifically
I
for
don't think
lower
they
income.
cross. I don't think Carrie Ann gets a lot of requests from people who are trying to build a house.
I think they're trying to put food on the table.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, you're not talking about,
not,
you're talking about,
I'm talking about people who are maybe in the position to build or add on or add an ADU to their
Well,
property.
and I
Yeah.
think what's kind of interesting is that I do think we want to think about ADUs and if there's a gap in the market, what we can do to bridge that gap and facilitate the building of those particular units. I also think that Bob's idea of the abandoned house inventory is another part of the answer to the housing question of which of these are, what units are abandoned, what units are simply not being lived in, and so forth, so that we can start figuring that out, which of those units that aren't being lived in, how many of them are tangled up in bank issues. We have a house in our neighborhood that has that situation. What can be done to sort that out, kind of thing. But this is such a big and fuzzy question, floppy question, and there are so many answers to the little pieces of it. I think that it's really important, as you've said, Conrad, to start and pull this material together.
to have a
So,
master view,
sorry?
have to have a master view.
Yeah.
And then, and there may be, you may even see opportunities to aggregate similar type structures that you have to work on,
Mhm,
into
mhm.
offerings. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that forward and talk about that a little bit. Anybody else have topics or comments they want to make?
I mean, I think it's definitely worth thinking about. I'd love, as Alex said, to have a little more information along the lines of what you're thinking of. Are you thinking of something like Sonia said about, Hammond lumber and going through and saying, in the Hammond lumber
Catalog.
kit, you can,
Yeah.
2, 4, 8, and 25 are no brainer, sort of thing.
And you could even have that
Right.
link on the website.
Or we just send them over there.
So I'm
I
gonna
kind of
do,
like that idea and I'm, to your point, I'm worried that somebody buys that house and it turns into a nightmare. And they're going, wait a minute, the town of Waldeboro told me this was perfect for
Well,
That's why I
are
just
we
send them to
creating a
Lumber.
problem?
you gotta at least put,
Operation, not my
up
problem.
those two.
I don't think we
Right.
want to market the concepts and ideas of individuals and companies as a
Mhm.
town. And basically, that's what we're doing. I just don't think it's an appropriate role for us to play.
well, as I say, I think it's better because I think I know what Conrad's aiming for, and I think I need to pull the example that I think it is. I think it's more of getting an architect or someone to put some designs together working with Mark, the code enforcement officer. And that's sort of a standard design that could be used by other people rather than maybe them having to go get their own architect. I think that's one of the options that some towns do. Rather than us saying, you have to pick this contractor and then you get an easy pass. I don't think that's exactly how it, I don't think that's how it works. I think it's more just the town or Mark, just in his infinite wisdom saying, these are the designs that I'm very comfortable with. They address all the concerns. As long as you have someone following that to the letter, you don't need me here every step of the way. And then it's on the contractor working on it to actually follow it.
Right.
That's what I think it is, and that's what I've always liked about the idea. Someone just picks it. And that's it. But that's me being wishful. Let me find the example, and then I think we can chat about it next month.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, then
Well,